An inquiry has revealed a toxic culture of racism and misogyny in the London Fire Brigade. This is the independent culture review into the London Fire Brigade, which was ordered by the Commissioner and also by the Mayor, led by Nazir Afzal, OBE, the very famous QC, hearing experiences of over 2,000 people working in the brigade and also the public, including those who were involved in the Grenfell fire disaster as well, talking about their experiences. And it is a sobering read, to say the least. Some of the experiences that people talk about in their time include discrimination and sexism as well. And the London Fire Commissioner Andy Rowe has given a statement to say that today is a very sobering day. There's no place for discrimination, harassment and bullying in the brigade. And from today, it will be completely clear to all staff what behaviour isn't acceptable and what the consequences will be for that behaviour. He goes on to say, I'm deeply sorry for the harm that has been caused. I'll be fully accountable for improving our culture and I fully accept all of the 23 recommendations. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, joins us. And John, what kind of things were uncovered by this review?
Well, this report follows in 250 interviews with former and current staff. And there are some pretty horrible examples, actually. It talks about a female officer whose helmet was filled with urine and she was also zipped inside a body bag as part of a practical joke. That officer was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And the report reveals details of racism, bullying and misogyny. It's 88 pages, due to be published this weekend. Talks about a toxic culture in the London Fire Brigade. Now, of course, there's been all these sort of allegations about the Metropolitan Police as well. And the new commissioner, as Mark Rowley, has threatened to root all that out. Well, it looks as though there's a task here for Andy Rowe. He's the chief fire officer, if he survives this report, that is. So let me tell you some other examples. A black employee finding a noose above his locker, a Muslim firefighter, a terrorism hotline sticker placed near his belongings. And when he returned from a pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia, colleagues asked how his Al-Qaeda training had gone. At some stages, station semen was smeared on women's tunics. The report describes some of these stories as stomach-turning. The report is called the Independent Cultural Review of London Fire Brigade. It was commissioned following the death of a trainee at Wembley Fire Station, Jaden Francois Esprit, who took his own life in August 2020. He was 21 years old. Now, that inquest heard that the young man believed he was being bullied at work because of his ethnicity, claims that he was teased about the Caribbean food he brought in for lunch. He'd made 16 requests to be transferred to another station. These are some of the examples. According to the report, in firefighters in England, not just in London, white officers, 95% white, mixed 2%, Asian or Asian British 1%, black or British 1%, Chinese or other 1%. It actually uses the phrase harrowing examples. The author has said, unless a toxic culture that allows bullying and abuse to be normalised is tackled, I fear that, like the young man who took his own life, others will take their own lives. One woman has written in all the testimony that there is in the report, it's now reached a point with me that I tell my female friends not to let male firefighters in the house. Why? Because I know what they do. They go through women's drawers looking for underwear and sex toys. Then they will spend hours bragging about the dildo they found and will refer to women as sluts. We hear it all the time and I'm sick of it. Well, obviously, this report is bound to be seized up by MPs who are critical of the way the London Fire Brigade is operating. And there are bound to be questions to ministers in the House of Commons on Monday. The Fire Brigade comes under, I think I'm right in saying, the Home Office still, or is it levelling up now? Used to be the Home Office. Some real questions for ministers here. And I'm sure that Sadiq Khan, when he responds to this, will want to take some pretty tough action, and it may well be that Andy Rowe, the Fire Brigade's commissioner, well, if he survives this, he'll be doing well.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Apologies, for some of the language that we've heard and some of the details of this report, but, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, it is a reflection of what Nazir Afzal has found in it. I'll bring you the statement as well by the London Fire Commissioner, Andy Rowe, who said, today's a very sobering day. There's no place for discrimination, harassment and bullying in the brigade. And from today, it will be completely clear to all staff what behaviour isn't acceptable and what the consequences will be. He apologises as well. He says, I'm deeply sorry for the harm that's been caused. I will be fully accountable for improving our culture, and I fully accept all of the 23 recommendations. So lots of recommendations in the report. John, you were mentioning, weren't you, the recent publicity around the Metropolitan Police. It does feel, doesn't it, that we are starting to, I guess, look under the bonnet of some of these institutions and find some quite jaw-dropping examples of bullying, of misogyny and of racism as well. Yes, and the numbers, some more numbers for you. More than 4,000, I think this is the London Fire Brigade, more than 4,500 of the 5,000 staff are firefighters, that is. Only four, that's in the London Fire Brigade, only 425 are women, just over 500 from ethnic minorities, a tiny proportion in such a diverse city, the report says. That talks about how the work is dangerous and so on. The report talks about demonstrable bigotry found in fire stations. And it goes on to say, it seems that the brigade's culture is pickled in aspic, a throwback to the last century, where offensive banter, particularly that characterised by extreme sexism, was apparent. Some watches seem to operate almost outside the law, the report adds. There were fights and I nearly had my legs broken, one watch manager says in the report. I've been urinated on, head-butted, had cold water poured over me. It was horrendous. So a mental health time bomb it also talks about as well. Talks about increased numbers of staff leaving the service since Grenfell as well. Increased absence related to anxiety, stress or depression. Then it goes on to quote a black firefighter, Gareth Davis, experienced a long history of aggression, the nice racism that comes behind a smile before eventually helping to create what he termed progressive space at his fire station where racist, sexist and homophobic language and behaviour could not be tolerated. There's also a mention of the George Floyd death in Minneapolis at the hand of a police officer and the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. There was due to be a cultural change. Gareth Dawes, actually, I got that name wrong. He was left feeling unsupported and isolated. Quite extraordinary. And so on, yeah. It does feel, doesn't it, a bit of a turning point, potentially. John, thanks very much for the analysis. Nazir Afzal, OBE, leading that report into misogyny, racism and bullying at the London Fire Brigade. He said that he despairs at some of the findings of the reports and that he hopes the review would be a turning point.